Greetings and welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Before I get into the lecture, a couple of course notes for you. One is that at the top of the page for the course, there's a link called Projects Forum. Um, that's with the Disciples timeline that I've put up that you may be interested in downloading. And it's right under the link that you use to introduce yourselves. Um, in there, you'll want to select what project you're doing from the list of projects on the syllabus, and then uh, pick which of the last 3 weeks you want to present. No more than 4 people in uh, 1 week, please. And that should cover us. With 3 weeks, 4 people, that's 12 spots. So there's plenty of spots to go around. And you can do your presentation or project presentation in any format that you so desire. If you want to do a lecture like this, if you wish to do a paper, a PowerPoint presentation, that's up to you. Some people have already asked me about it, so that projects forum is up for you to grab the project that you wish to do. And it's one person per project. So if you go and see that somebody else has chosen the project that you wish to do, go to your second choice, please. Also, this week, because of people's schedules, there's going to be two chat times. Uh, One will stay the same as last week. That's Thursday at 7 p.m. But the second one will be Thursday at 3 p.m. So we'll have two opportunities. You don't have to come to both. Uh, Only one would be required. I did this because some people couldn't do evenings. So if you find the afternoon to be more suitable, feel free to join us on Thursday afternoon at 3. Otherwise, Thursday at 7 is your best time. Now, turning to our lecture for today, we continue with the disciples' early history. On the 1st of January in 1832, with a handshake, the disciples on one side and the Christians on the other came together in Georgetown, Kentucky, which is in northern Kentucky. It was a meeting between the followers of Barton Stone and the followers of Alexander Campbell, though not both of them were not present at the meeting. But that would come to be known as the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, because the Stone followers were known as Christians, and the Campbell followers were known as disciples. And that's how we ended up with sort of two names, a parenthetical name into our denomination. So let's look at the folks who were important in the founding of this event. First off, there's Thomas Campbell. Thomas Campbell was born in Ireland, was raised Roman Catholic, but converted to Presbyterianism. And Presbyterianism in Europe at that point in time had many divisions. Thomas belonged to the Old Light Anti-Burger Seceder Presbyterian Church. That means there were 3 divisions among the Presbyterians at least at the time. The Old Light versus New Light, the Anti-Burger versus Burger, and the Seceder versus Non-Seceder. And each meant a different thing, and each had separated out for different reasons. Thomas thought such divisions were wrong. He thought they were a disgrace to Christianity. He emigrated to the United States in 1807, came to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and left behind his family, including his 19-year-old son, Alexander, whom we'll get to in a bit. So he was assigned to a church in Washington, Pennsylvania, which is out west in western Pennsylvania, out near Pittsburgh. And he got in trouble fairly quickly out there because of his beliefs that sectarianism differences were contrary to the gospel. Um, he not only associated with, but he served communion to other Presbyterians that weren't part of his sect. The divisions were that strong. And he got in trouble because he allowed other Presbyterians to take communion. Um, so he left the Presbyterians and formed the Christian Association of Washington, which was devoted to uniting Christianity. Now, this was not a church, but they soon formed a church in 1807 called the Brush Run Church. No, in 1811, I'm sorry. 1811, they formed the Brush Run Church. In 1809, they formed the Christian Association of Washington. And it was as the Christian Association of Washington that he was asked to write a, a statement of purpose, which turned out to be his Declaration and Address, which he wrote in 1809, which formed the basis of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ movement for unity in Christianity. So Thomas is there in Western Pennsylvania. His family in 1808 left Londonderry, but within 2 days they hit a storm, and their ship in the middle of the night runs aground. Now, in the midst of this storm, in which there was not any threat to human life, fortunately, but still a emotional and frightening experience, um, in the midst of the storm, his son Alexander Campbell um, makes the decision to follow in his father's footsteps and go into the ministry. So it's from that storm that we end up with Alexander Campbell in the ministry. Since their plans for travel to the United States are literally and literally grounded, um, Alexander decides to study at the university in Glasgow for a year. And there he runs into new ideas about the church. Things like independence of congregations and congregational autonomy, the personal and private interpretation of Scripture, that there's not somebody from higher up telling you how to interpret Scripture. Uh, Various reactions to the state church, because of course in Glasgow there was the Church of Scotland, which was the church that was primary. But other churches were springing up and breaking away at the time. And a reaction to the creeds instead of holding the New Testament as descriptive of faith. So the next year, in 1809, his family sets forth. And they arrive in New York and are soon reunited with their father, Thomas, in Western Pennsylvania. And Alexander is ordained eventually by the Brush Run Church there in Washington. Alexander Campbell is a prolific author. He wrote The Millennial Harbinger, which was their newsletter, their publication for the early church. He was convinced that adult baptism is the way to go, that baptism is a personal choice, not something that just happens. So Alexander, there in Western Pennsylvania and what turns out to be West Virginia later on, grows the ministry and brings in many followers. So now please go to the second lecture for this week.